Hello everyone and welcome to a new seasonal reading video. I have some summer book recommendations to share with you today. I'm going to start off with what I'm reading at the moment. This book I actually just finished. It's a reread. It is Three Men in a Boat. I got this secondhand folio edition last summer. And I just love it because this is one of my favourite books and it is a brilliant read for the summertime. It starts off in early summer. It's set in Edwardian times, that's when it was written, and it's about three male friends and the dog Montmorency who decide to go on a boat trip along the Thames. And they start out in Greater London, and there's some just wonderful descriptions of the Thames and the English countryside in the summertime. But there are also a lot of hilarious incidents that happen during this journey, and it's just such a funny, light-hearted story. It's all set during the summertime, so it's a perfect summer read. And I love the Audible edition of this book that's read by Ian Carmichael. It's available on Audible. It's the audiobook, and it's just so well read. He's fantastic reading Three Men in a Boat. So if you like audiobooks, then give that a try. But Three Men in a Boat is just so fabulous. So I have to recommend that as a summer read, and I just finished rereading it, and it was a delight as always. A book I would like to read is Summertime by Rafaela Barker. This book takes place all throughout just the spring and the summer, and it's the sequel to Hens Dancing by the same author. I've spoken about that book on my channel before, so some of you may have read it. This is the sort of follow-up story to Hens Dancing, and whilst Hens Dancing started in the spring but went all through a year, this book really only takes place over the spring and summer. So it's a great summery read for that reason, and it's one that I'm looking forward to getting to. Then another book that starts in the summertime and that I'll be reading this summer is The Warden by Anthony Trollope. This is a reread for me, but I've picked this book for my Seasons of Story community book club, and I can't wait to read it with everyone who is in Seasons of Story. I'm such a big Trollope fan, so is my mum. She actually was the one who really got me into Trollope because she just adores Trollope. And it will be really fun to read it together this summer and also to be reading it with the Seasons of Story community. So I'm excited to return to this one. It will be a lovely read, I know. And then for me, I always enjoy, in the spring and summer months, reading books about gardening in particular, also wildlife and nature. That just naturally fits summertime or springtime for me. And this is a new release. It's A Wilder Way, How Gardens Grow Us by Poppy Okocha. And I've just started this and I'm really enjoying the writing already. This is a non-fiction choice, so it's more of a memoir, but it's very lyrically written and I'm really enjoying the beginning. So I'll be looking forward to progressing with this book throughout the summer. And I've been enjoying growing my own tiny bit of garden a lot, obviously, this summer. So I know I'm going to enjoy this book, which is about a garden in Devon, I believe, which is lovely. So I'm enjoying this. I always like to read a mystery in the summertime. If you're traveling in the summer or if you want a good sort of beach read, for me the answer to that is always a page-turning mystery. Now, you know I always fall a bit more into the cozy crime style though, so I love this one, The Braiding Collection by Patricia Wentworth. This is a great sort of heat wave read. It's set in the summertime during a heat wave, and it's just a good mystery. Even though you maybe will guess who's done it, there's just a lot to enjoy. As always with the Miss Silver mysteries, There's a romance that takes place through the book, so generally a kind of romantic issue has to be solved as well as a mystery, like a murder in the Miss Silver books. And I always like that. I love those sort of almost joint plot lines of a romance plus the murder mystery that needs to be solved. That pretty much is always apparent in the Miss Silver mysteries, and it just gives that cozier feel to her mysteries that I like a lot. But this is a great heatwave book, so definitely a fun one to have on the train or have by the beach. It really is a good introduction to Miss Silver as well if you don't know those mysteries. And then I've spoken before about how much I like Christiana Brand. My favourite mystery by her is Green for Danger, which is so good. But I also really like this one, Suddenly at His Residence, a mystery in Kent. It's always fun to sort of know the setting of a book. I remember really enjoying this one. I think it was 2 years ago or so that I read it, and I remember it had quite a sort of summery atmosphere, I feel, to the story, and the mystery was actually really good. I thought it was a very clever one. I mean, maybe not quite up there with Green for Danger, which is very, very clever, but it was pretty good, I have to say. I really enjoyed it. It's a typical English country house, sort of closed circle murder mystery. I always like that kind of traditional setup for a cozy sort of mystery. So that's something that I enjoyed about this book. But it's a real golden age classic kind of mystery. So another one that I recommend. If you like a bit spookier, rather than cozy, then you have to give The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman a try. This short story is set during the summer, and it is really creepy. In this collection, this has got a lot of her short stories and other writings by her. The Yellow Wallpaper sort of starts here. But it really is such a good but really quite scary story, I have to say. But it's a classic sort of the genre, and I really recommend it. And yes, it's one that is set in the summertime. Another book that has so far a bit of a creepy edge, I forgot to mention it earlier, but it's another book that I'm reading at the moment, and it's called The Girl in the Photograph. I'll put a photo up of it here because I actually got the Kindle edition of this book. It was really inexpensive when I bought it, but this story is meant to be a little bit like Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's by Kate Riordan, I hope that's how you say her last name. And so far I'm quite gripped by it. It's one of those sort of dual timeline stories, but so one of the timelines is set in the 1930s, and the other, I think, is set in the sort of very late 19th century. But both these timelines follow sort of two particular summers. And again, the setting is an English country house in Gloucestershire. And I've just started the book. I'm a few chapters in, and so far it's quite suspenseful. You know something's going to go wrong, but you're not sure what. So I'm really enjoying that one at the moment too. And yes, it's just another good read if you like a bit of suspense mixed in with your summer reading, or if you're a Daphne du Maurier fan, then maybe give this one a try. That's sort of what hooked me in to trying this book, and so far I am enjoying it. Another book for if you'd like more, a bit in the Charlotte Perkins Gilman sort of vein, or another short story, I should say, that is also summer appropriate, is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. I just realised I don't have a copy of that book, so I'll put a picture up of it here, and I really should get it. I'm sure it's in one of the short story collections that I have. So I'll have to have a look and see which collection it's in, because I know it's in one of mine. But that is actually set so that the day of the lottery is a day in June, which makes it a very appropriate summer read, but it's a very disturbing story. So not one to read if you're only a fan of cozy books. Shirley Jackson is a brilliant writer though. I mean, I love her novels like We Have Always Lived in the Castle and The Haunting of Hill House, but they're definitely all pretty chilling reads, I have to say. For a lighter book, I would recommend Joy in the Morning by P.G. Wodehouse. I always think of P.G. Wodehouse as quite a summery read somehow, I think because his novels are so light and bright and funny. Joy in the Morning is definitely a summer book and it's one of my favourites. I do love books that make me laugh and are just lovely light reads in the summer too, and they contrast well with some of the more darker summer suspense type books. So I always like to mix in a bit of P.G. Wodehouse, and I really love Joy in the Morning. If you like P.G. Wodehouse, then again, I think you would really like Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome, which I talked about earlier, because that's very much in a sort of similar vein. These are both great books to make you laugh in the summertime. Then a short story collection that I really enjoyed reading, I think it was just last summer, is Stories for Summer and Days by the Pool. And this is one of the British Library women writers' books. I actually really enjoy their short story anthologies. This is the second seasonal one they've done. No, the third, because there's a Christmas short story anthology, a winter one, and now a summer one. And I really love how they've done that. So this is great and a good book. If you just want a book that you can kind of dip in and out of, then a short story collection is, I always think, a great option for that, because you don't really lose your train of thought. You can just pick it up, put it down again whenever you want, and just enjoy the odd short story. So this can be quite a good option if you're traveling, for instance, as well. And then a book I've recommended many times as a summer read, but I wanted to recommend it again because it is a favourite of mine, is Father by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is set in August. It has some wonderful descriptions of the British countryside in August. It follows a young heroine who kind of finally breaks away from her father, and she goes to live in a cottage by herself. She wants to be independent. She's been working as her father's sort of unpaid secretary for years, but on his second marriage to a woman who I think is even younger than his daughter decides to leave home and sort of fend for herself. And she loves country life. She starts growing her own garden, but then complications start to emerge, and there's a sort of romantic entanglement that takes place in this book. But it really is a great read by Elizabeth von Arnim. If you've enjoyed The Enchanted April or Elizabeth in Her German Garden, then do give Father a try. Another classic favourite of mine is Jane Austen's Emma. Whenever it's strawberry season, which it definitely is right now in the UK, I always think of Emma because I think of the wonderful strawberry picking scene at Donwell Abbey that takes place in this book. There's also a famous picnic scene, the picnic on Box Hill, that takes place in Emma, and of course the summertime is the season for picnics. So although Emma takes place all through a year, there are some fabulous summer scenes in this book. And for that reason, I love to return to Emma every summertime. Then another great summery read is the Hazelborn Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club by Helen Simonson. This was such a fun read. If you enjoy historical fiction, then I definitely recommend giving this one a try. It's set in the summer of 1919, and it's really interesting in how it depicts women's lives after World War One, and the contrast from during the war, when women were actually given a lot more freedom to work being a big part of that, and then the contrast to after the war, when so many of those freedoms were taken away again. It's just a really interesting look at that time period. But again, there's also a romance that goes through this story. Female friendship is an important part of this story too. That's always a theme I really enjoy seeing in a novel and reading about. So I really enjoyed that element to this story too. A couple of non-fiction reads that I wanted to finish off with. One is Picnic in Provence by Elizabeth Bard. This is such a fun book. I love Elizabeth Bard's writing. She wrote Lunch in Paris, which is the kind of first in this little sort of duo of memoirs, but you don't have to have read that one to enjoy Picnic in Provence, but I do really love Lunch in Paris as well. Elizabeth Bard is an American who moves to Paris, falls in love, and never leaves. But she's a real foodie too, and her books have a lot of recipes mixed in throughout the pages, and I really like that. And in this book, this is about Elizabeth and her French husband who decide to leave Paris for Provence, and they set up a little ice cream business there. I've actually been to their ice cream shop. Sadly, I don't believe that it's going anymore, but a few years ago, after I'd interviewed Elizabeth Bard, I actually visited her ice cream shop in Provence and did another little interview with her, and it was just so much fun, and it was so lovely to meet her. So that will always be a special summer memory of mine. But this is a great summery read, because who wouldn't like to read about Provence in the summer, I think, and ice cream in particular. So yes, definitely a fun book for the summertime, and one that has especially fun summer memories attached to it for me, which is really lovely. And then this is another favourite of mine, British Summertime Begins by Ascenda Maxstone Graham, The School Summer Holidays 1930 to 1980. I love Ascenda Maxstone Graham's writing. She's just brilliant at looking at certainly less studied aspects of social history. I loved her book Terms and Conditions, which looked at the British girls' boarding school, and this was a really interesting read as well, looking at how the summer holidays happened to children from the years of 1930 to 1980, so how those holidays were experienced, and the type of freedom that was given to children to just roam that would certainly never happen now. And looking at that sort of cultural shift and social shift is just so well done. I learned so much from reading this book. So definitely one I recommend as well. Anyway, that's my little list of summer reads for you. I hope you've got some summery bookish inspiration from this video. I hope you've been having a wonderful weekend, and do let me know what books are on your summer to be read pile. I'd love to hear what you're looking forward to reading this season as well. But I'll see you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.